Alrighty, welcome aboard, and thank you for tuning in to the Heavy Metal Truckers. We are your hosts. I am Pincushion, and this is Doppler. And in this video, we are doing a album analysis to the new album from Marilyn Manson called Assassination Under God, and something just dawned on me.
Oh.
I may or may not have chosen the wrong hat for this video.
Oh.
Oops. Oh well. Anyway, so yes, Manson put this album out recently.
That long ago, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but he put it out recently. And
Ago. 3 weeks, two, something like that.
Yeah. So, into our typical fashion, I will let Doppler go first, and he can explain, if he wants to, how he came to know Manson, or understand who he is, and then go into his analysis, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, we can go into it, because I don't think we've covered Manson on this channel before.
No, and I don't, honestly, we didn't even do we didn't do an analysis or anything to his first single either, because I didn't. Yeah,
I mean, we talked about it.
We talked about it. Yeah, and yeah.
So anyway, how I discovered Manson, I kind of discovered him around the same time everybody else did, around the time that Antichrist Superstar came out, and Beautiful People and all that. I actually became a fan then, and his next couple albums. You had the Golden Age of Grotesque, and what was the name of the other one?
There was Golden Age of Grotesque, there was Pale Emperor, there was Born Villain. Like, I'm not saying in order, just what I remember after.
Oh, it was around that time. Mine is blank. Those were big albums back then. You had Antichrist Superstar, Golden Age of
you're talking about the old albums. You're talking about Hollywood and
Hollywood.
This is, yeah. Hollywood was
Might have been an album, but I don't think it's the one I'm thinking about.
Okay, that was 03. Anyway, Golden Age of Grotesque came out like 2010 era, I think.
Was 07?
07. Okay, I don't remember.
Yeah, get up.
This Is What We Eat or something.
I don't remember. But anyway. Basically, the late 90s or early 2000s. When did Beautiful People came out? That was around the turn.
The Beautiful People came out in like 98 or 99, if I remember correctly.
Yep, it was late 90s, yeah. So late 90s through, like the mid 2000s is when Manson was like at his peak for me. And I think a lot of his old school fans probably would agree with that. I loved all those albums. I saw him in concert back in 02 or 03. I can't remember exactly which year it was. It was one of those. So it was during that time. But after, about those mid 2000s or late 2000s, he went downhill for me.
As I think he did with a lot of people, to be honest.
Yeah, he did. And I really couldn't get into his next several albums, actually. Like, they didn't do much for me. I mean, he had a couple decent covers, but that was about it during that time. So, coming into this new stuff, I was skeptical, obviously, because of the way he's been going. And, a buddy of mine said, hey, he came out with his new, he just put out the first new song from this album, check it out. And I was like, all right. And I listened to it, I was like, damn, this is actually pretty good. Like, this is more online with what I liked from Manson back in the day. And it wasn't that long after that I mentioned it to you.
Oh, the one you're talking about, 07, it was Eat Me, Drink Me. So.
No, that wasn't the one I was thinking. When did Golden Age of Grotesque come out?
The Golden Age of Grotesque was 03. And then 07 was Eat Me, Drink Me. The high end of Low was 09.
What was before Major Grotesque?
It was Hollywood.
Oh, maybe it was Hollywood that I was thinking of then.
I was about to say, because Hollywood was a big release.
Yeah, it might. Maybe it was, and I'm brain farting.
Because that's Disposable Teens was on that one.
Yeah. Anywho.
Yeah.
So I forgot my loss. Oh yeah, so he told me about, and that's when I mentioned it to you, and I was like, dude, like the new Manson song is actually pretty good, and and I know you listened to it, and you enjoyed it too, and then it wasn't long after that he put the second one out.
Yeah.
Which I was Raise the Flag, or was it Sacrilegious?
Raise the Red Flag.
Yeah, that was the second one, and I think we actually listened to that one together for the first time.
We did.
And yeah, and we both were like, "Damn, this one's good too,"
Yeah.
And then he put out. I think it might have been Sacrilegious, and that one was good. And it actually, like, damn, this might actually be his first good album since back in the day.
Well, fuck, let's face it, Sacrilegious, like, that track was as close to, like, what he's known for in this, like, to the old fans these days, from that album, that was so far the closest thing to his older material.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of the songs on this album, as you went through them, you got a lot of the feels of his old music on it. This album, as a whole, really took you back in a large way.
Oh yeah.
To his older stuff, and then when the album came out, he put out the title track, which actually is probably, for me anyway, personally, my favorite song on the album.
Which is the intro, yeah.
Yeah, it's One Assassination Under God, yeah. But I think he also abbreviates it as what, UAOG or something like that.
OUAG. OUAG.
Yeah, OUAG. Okay. Yeah, it would be, yes.
Or no, OAUG. My bad.
OAUG. Yeah.
Sorry, I went dyslexic there for a moment.
All right, I was screwed up too. And I fell in love with that song, and so all four songs. And I'd listen to that song before I listened to the album because I saw the music video for it. I was like, damn, all four songs have been incredible. Like he's killing it. So and so I was like, I've got to listen to the whole album. So like right after that, I looked it up and realized, oh shit, the album came out today too. I actually listened to the whole album, and I ain't gonna lie, I loved it. Like, I know the first time we discussed this album, the second song, No Funeral Without Applause, was my least favorite, but going back and listening to the album several more times, that song has actually grown on me quite a bit. And I don't think I could call it my least favorite anymore. Actually, I don't know if I've got a least favorite on the album, to be honest with you.
Everything's like equally fairly on par with each other. There might be just one that's like slightly lower than the others as far as this linear thing going on.
Yeah, and so I like, there's not a skippable or a skip song for me on this album. And you can tell, even though it's still very Manson, there is some maturation in his writing style and like what he's writing.
I'm not going to lie.
He's now, but
which I'll cover more of this whenever it comes to my turn, but I actually had to take a break from listening to it because I was reading the lyrics along and it was so intense that I had to take a break because it was not to sound like, I hate using the term millennial, but it's kind of true. Not for it to sound like a mental mind fuck, but it kind of was.
In a way, yeah. In a lot of ways, it was. Especially when you get into a lot of songs that had like some deeper meanings to them, like the first song he released,
oh my god,
as sick as The Secrets Within. That was a very fit along exactly like what you were just talking about. especially if if you're able to really relate to it, which a lot of people would be able to.
Well, and see, that's the one thing with Manson is just he's, I think, listened to enough people just because his crowd is the crowd of the outcasts and those who feel like that they don't belong anywhere else, and so he's been able to listen to them because he's the only one that fucking will listen to them. And almost anyone can relate to that, especially in this modern age where, we were listening to him as kids, and we're growing up now, and we're kind of facing the world, and we're all, I guess, kind of discovering how just messed up the ones that we looked up to actually were, and we're kind of discovering why they were almost.
Yeah, and to me, it's still mind blowing. The dude's over 50 now. Like, it just seems
it just seems surreal.
Feel old, yeah. And honestly, if you look at him, at least when he's in the makeup, he doesn't look that old. So,
No.
But anyway, we're getting off track. But yeah, it is a very deep album. There's a lot of, like you said, if you go read the lyrics, it can be a hard album to listen to in a lot of ways. Especially, like I said, if you can relate to a lot of what he's talking about. And like I said, there's a lot of people that probably can't, or they can't. And and like you said, that's one thing Manson's always been. That's why he gained a lot of fans, because he gave a voice and actually said out loud what a lot of people were thinking and what, not just in his music, but just talking in general. Like, if he did interview, but not. And because he didn't care. He still don't care, but
exactly. It's just it's almost like he's not the villain we deserve, but he's the villain that we need.
Yeah. And he's always been a very misunderstood person, and he uses it to his advantage.
Oh, absolutely.
And, and because of that, he draws people to him. And, But, this album was a continuation of that, and like I said, and because of that, you could feel the maturation in his lyrics and the music, and while still holding on to or going back to the roots of what made him become popular, right? Or become him, right? Like I said, I plan to buy the album. I haven't bought it yet, but I plan to.
Yeah. I actually would love to own it at some point.
Yeah. It's pretty sad when you're so tight on money you can't even afford a $20 album. But anyway,
dude, $20 is like $20.
Because right now, in today's day and age, and the way stuff costs,
it feels like 50.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But anyway, and a lot of his songs, like you said, Sacrilegious really gave that old school feel of his. And there were other songs that gave a lot of old school, like 90s feels.
There was some, yeah.
Feels, but just 90s feels in general. Like I mentioned the first time we talked about it, I mentioned, what was the name? Something Purgatory.
Meet Me in Purgatory.
Meet Me in Purgatory. That one had some, like, 90s feels to it. It reminded me...
My God, the lyrics to that one, that... Whew.
Yeah, that was another one, yeah. But musically, it reminded me a lot of the 90s. Like, I've got some Garbage feels from it.
Yeah.
The other group that was it the Cardigans? I don't know, I can't remember. There was another group, too. That gave
you told me Garage, like, originally.
Garbage.
Or
Garbage, not Garage.
Garbage.
Yeah. And, so I like anything that gives me those 90s nostalgic vibes, because that's what I grew up on. And so to me, that was another big plus of the album. And, for me, this album shows that A, he's still got it, and B, he's back, at least to me.
Yeah, I mean...
For the moment, anyway. I don't know what the next album's going to be like, but for the moment...
You discussing the 90s, depending on how long I end up going on this, there's something I have to show you. We might have to do, like, Doppler analysis or Doppler hears for the first time whatever kind of video, like depending on how this goes, because there's something that came to mind that I recently showed to my wife that it was on one of Glenn Fricker's mix reviews, and I listened to it. I'm like, wow, this is damn good. It kind of gives you that old 90s nu metal vibe. I love it, with a little bit of like the EDM industrial aspect.
We'll have to check it out. There's actually, off topic, but there's a band I want to ask you about too later, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
I recently discovered. But anyway,
Okay.
so,
Cool.
but yeah, no, it, like, overall, I was thoroughly surprised by this album. Pleasantly surprised, happily surprised. You know, and it's one of the best albums I've listened to this year. I don't know if I'd say it was the best, but it's one of the best I've heard this year.
Yeah. We haven't had many good albums this year, or many albums this year as far as I'm concerned, but the ones that have come out, wow.
They really have been. Like, I won't disagree with that. Like, last year we had some hit or miss ones. But this year, pretty much all the ones we've done have been, like, I can't think of really a negative one I think we've done this year, unless the Amaranth one came out this year.
Let me see, because
late next year. That was.
damn it. I can't remember whenever Omens came out. That came out. God damn it! Hold up.
While you're saying that, I'm gonna give my score. So,
Okay, yeah.
this album, I gave it a score of 8.75.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would recommend anybody who's an old school fan of Manson that, like me, kind of fell out of love, here lately, or like in the last decade or so, and has been hesitant to listen to this, I strongly recommend checking it out. You will not be disappointed.
Okay. Give me just a moment. I'm going to cut away because it's almost empty, and I require another because I am trying to quit vaping, and I need another vice for the moment. Hold up.
Yingling's good when it's cold, but if it's not cold, it's...
Well, hold up. So, yeah, I'm not, and even then, I'm not typically a beer drinker, but funds have been tight, so
Yeah.
I gotta do what I can, man. And, yeah, so like, yeah, typically I don't mind room temperature beer. That's actually my preference when it comes to beer. But I mean, I just got it, and beer is the one thing I don't particularly mind if it is cold. But
There are some beers that I will only drink them if they are ice cold. Yingling's one of them. Corona's another. If Corona even gets slightly warm, it becomes absolutely disgusting.
But yeah, Yingling was my wife's favorite back whenever, she would drink as well. Like, obviously she's not like excessively, but like she drinks way less now, just because like that was mainly just party days. Or even then, just like among her family. Huh?
It's like me. I hardly ever drink anymore.
Yeah, because like I'll drink almost every day, but I don't drink the way I used to. Even now, I have various whiskeys that I just want to taste the flavor of. I hardly even get a buzz anymore because it's not what I'm after.
Yeah.
With the exception of nights like tonight where the week's over, I just want to kind of let loose a little bit, which I know my intoxication levels, I cut myself off. But then again, that's just knowing your own self.
Way off topic.
Anyways, by the way, the Omens album from Lamb of God, it came out in 2022, so I'm like, fuck that.
Yep. We never even went over that one because it came out too late.
Yeah. So I do want to say that I did write notes in regards to the Manson album.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. So I will start off by saying, for me, discovering Manson, it was at some point in some time in the early 2000s. That's all I remember, to be honest. Like, I just remember my buddy and I, we were like listening along to Korn, and this is like the days of Twisted Transistor too. And
oh wow.
Yeah, so like we're talking about old school. Well, fairly old school because Korn's pretty old. It feels so weird to say.
They've been around since the 90s.
But yeah, so like we're just jamming on a Twisted Transistor, and then which honestly for our age we probably shouldn't have been doing, but that's besides the point. We were also like singing along to like Beautiful People or whatever. So like at some point along the way, like I discovered Manson, and I would enjoy listening to him, but I can't say he was ever necessarily a favorite. He was just within my rotation, and why is this camera doing this?
You just got really blurry. So there we go.
There we go. Okay, so it's probably with the beard. I have it on autofocus, which I probably shouldn't have done.
Oh yeah.
But I haven't messed with that camera since we quit with the previous company. Which honestly, I guess at this point we could say like we were with US Express. But anyways,
Yeah.
We haven't
matter anymore.
Yeah. So to start off with, we had both listened to. Fuck, what was it? What was the first single we heard? Or you showed me?
You and I? Oh, it was the first single, As Sick as the Secrets Within.
Yes, and I was actually very well impressed with that because I'm like, okay, this has some like little edge to it, and aggression to it. I can dig it. Okay, and then afterwards I'm like, wow, not bad. But I'm holding a bit of skepticism just because I know how, even when it comes to metal, even modern aspects of metal, typically don't like it. So I'm like, I'm keeping a healthy dose of skepticism. And then we heard Raise the Red Flag, and we're like, holy shit, okay, this is promising. And so of course we had the full album, and of course under the full album, when Assassination Under God. In this, there is an eerie build-up that is followed by an atmospheric is followed by an atmosphere, and this is reminiscent of Deftones to me.
In some ways, and it was probably one of the more atmospheric songs on the album, which is probably why it was one of my favorites.
Yeah, but I mean, and it wasn't bad because, like, I think instrumentally, both of us, we don't particularly mind Deftones. It's fucking Chino that neither of us can tolerate.
If it's not whining, I'd be fine.
Sorry, Deftones fans. We're sorry, but Chino, you're great at what you do, but it's just not for us.
It's just not for me, yeah.
Yeah. But about halfway through, there was a transition into a nice and steady groove from the rhythm section too. And then after a halfway point, just almost this symphonic atmosphere, it became present, and it allowed for a lifting of the overall track. And then it got deeply emotional, like almost 3/4 of the way through and it just flowed into the finish. Like, I had to pull up the lyrics again, but I'm just like, the one thing that we just finished our Opeth video.
Yeah, wrong group there.
Sorry, good luck Shemai on your retirement, by the way. Or whatever's going on, I haven't read fully into it. But the deal with Opeth is that the instrumentals match the lyrics to a T. Like, it accompanied it extremely well. The same is said for Manson. He did so well on being able to accompany the instrumentals along with the lyrics. I wrote these notes about a week ago, so I don't entirely remember why I said it was emotional, but apparently it was. So we're going to roll with it.
I can see it. And also, as that song built up and it got to about that 2/3 point, his vocals became a little slightly more aggressive too,
Yes, they did.
and so that could
Mhm.
add to that emotional effect as well.
Correct. So after the beginning track, one Assassination Under God, I can't say it was my favorite, but it was a nice introduction to what the album was going to be. Just a preparation. That's what it was for me. A preparation, which of course, the first track, that's the way it should be. Well, depending on the situation. No Funeral Without Applause, second track. This had a very old school feel to me, and the intro holds nods to like a soundtrack to like 80s slasher films with some throwbacks to Sweet Dreams like a quarter of the way through. And so, I'm just like, I
Sweet,
heard it.
I actually like his cover better than the Eurythmics version.
I know that's really
Because I think it's because he sings it slower.
he sings it slower and he puts more into it. The way the subject matter of it fits it way better. Just like it's the same way with Nine Inch Nails and Hurt. Johnny Cash did a way better cover of it, but Nine Inch,
because Johnny Cash had way more emotion in it.
exactly. But he's like an 80-year-old dude looking up at all his fuck ups compared to a 20-year-old. His fuck ups are only like party days, like for 2 or 3 years prior to him writing that. So of course Johnny Cash is gonna have it so much more. But Trent Reznor even was like, "That's Johnny's song," and it's
whether you get covers like that, you like that's that like Disturbed with Sound of Silence. That's another one, like that's their song now.
yes.
Or even though you don't like this cover, I Will Always Love You has become Whitney Houston's song now, even though I know you prefer Dolly's version.
Yeah, just because. I know most people do actually.
That you get these covers that become the people who's covered it. It becomes their song.
Yeah, it does, and I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, Whitney Houston, she does good for what she does for the piece. It's just I don't like it. Like,
I love it.
yeah, so, and
We've had that
lot of. Yeah, I know. We've had this conversation before. A lot of people do. We digress. But now, despite the lighter areas where it's primarily, I believe the term is arpeggios, where it's more just single notes. The transition between it and into the old school feel is actually quite smooth in this. I didn't write anything regarding the lyrics, but the lyrics to me were hilarious.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, probably out of all the songs on the album, and like I said, it definitely is a song that's really grown on me the more I've listened to it.
So now, Not If You Understand, this is the third track.
Yeah.
There's some old punk essence from touches of instrumental and the lyrical chaos that can be heard. Like we're talking like Black Flag kind of punk, just kind of everything's kind of, there is an order to it, but it's just thrown out there in a manner that just feels disorganized, but it goes beautifully. And there's vocal distortion. Now I know this vocal distortion is more post-processing. I mean, yes, Manson can do vocal compression with his own vocals and make them sound distorted. However, there is some post-hardware, post-plugin work being done with this, and it's beautifully placed, mind you, and it's properly used for the subject matter of destruction. And it has a nice and heavy ending with a tempo that's brought up and a double kick used and screaming intensified. Like, it's a fantastic track, in my opinion. Like, I really enjoyed that one. And then this one was... So, I won't go into details, but there was a time in my past that I've managed to pretty much black out because I do not want to remember it, which there's a lot of people that have these. I imagine a good many of you after watching this, you might have similar situations, and so you can probably probably understand. But this has, as sick as The Secrets Within, it has a strong and hard-hitting build-up to a steady ride of a rhythm with vocals that completely steer the entire track. Like, it's outstanding. And this, it gives a sense of comfort instrumentally for a listener to be able to connect with what is being said, with the lyrical content being on a subject matter that could be very self-aware for some. So, as we said, there's many people that feel like they're mentally sick, or that they kind of feel like, oh, I'm twisted. I'm a twisted person. Like, they just kind of almost say it for the sense of getting attention. But in the perspective of Manson, which I can very much agree with, like, what really makes you a twisted and sick person is what you have not said and you don't feel comfortable with saying, which of course this is all extremely subjective, because some individuals may feel they are more open to be able to talk about this. Others may have more concern that they'll be shunned from society or shunned from their inner circle, and so they keep things within them. And that was probably one of the ones that hit closest to home for me years ago. And the lyrical content, it actually borders on getting therapy from a friend. Like, someone that's struggling mentally, they're just feeling like they're sick in the head and everything, and you have a friend that's going, you've been able to admit a lot of how you're feeling. So, if there's nothing else you're hiding, then you feel comfortable enough to be able to say this to me, and I can share this pain with you and at least sympathize with you, if not empathize. So it hit home. I'm just going to say that.
And I think it would for a lot of people.
Yeah. And this is one of the most interesting pieces thus far within the album, and considering the blending of a great deal of eeriness along with lyrically calling out to those who would correctively be suffering. And the piece does give lyrical undertones of suggesting the listener to speak in confidentiality about any potential internal struggles. Like, if you listen to this, if you really listen, Manson pretty much, it feels to me personally that Manson is calling out people to, hey, speak to your loved ones. If your loved ones are truly your loved ones, they'll understand and they'll be able to be there for you, no matter how twisted or unaccepting some subject matter to society is. Like, unfortunately, with the subject of this album, which is like dealing with assassinations and mass killings, there are people that just feel like going on an absolute fucking rampage, and people need to be able to tell other people that they feel like doing this and that they're struggling. This way the root cause can be understood and potentially be addressed, or find another outlet for that frustration or those other mental struggles. So this is probably one of the most intense tracks on the album, at least for me, just because it, like I said, it for me it hits home.
Yeah.
And also there is an intriguing use of pianos at the bridge of this.
True.
Yeah. So, anyways, now, after reading the lyrics and listening to it and just really making an impact, we go into Sacrilegious, and let me tell you, and I'm kind of just reading directly off my notes here, this is a fun and a groovy pickup from the more previous serious tracks. Yeah. This is a wholesome sense of lyrical rebellion, and there's a really cool vocal fry on the chorus. Come on, let's be sacrilege. And it just, there's a double. You know what? Let me put this away. Maybe that'll Yeah, there we go.
Yep,
That
yep,
works.
did it.
That did it. That did it. So yeah, it's just a let's be evil, let's be sacrilegious, and you just have this doubling of it all around you, like an encouragement of this, and I find it fucking brilliant. And yeah, it's like it provides a sinister fun about the subject matter, and it gives some of the best old school Manson traits and notoriety to this.
He does.
It really, like, at least for me, and I guess you too.
Definitely is what when you think of a Manson or Manson style songs, it's really in line with what you would expect from him.
Exactly, and it's one of the most fun tracks on the album that is much needed, because it's a bit of a contrast from the very intense lyrical content that's been provided previously. So yeah, Sacrilege is probably one of my absolute favorite tracks on this. Yeah. Now, Death is not a costume. There's a low distorted radio at the beginning, and I'm not entirely sure why this is, and someone that actually does more analytical work on this might be able to chime in, which you probably will. There's also a techno beginning after the intro bass line that feels almost kind of like a Depeche Mode and is pretty smooth rhythm.
It probably was, because I know he was a fan of Depeche.
He was a big Depeche Mode fan. I mean, the same thing with with Trent Reznor.
Yeah.
Now, the vocals, they're very clear and solidly enunciated to punch through, while the rhythm is essentially giving a smooth ride throughout the track. Like, I was very impressed with how well enunciated these lyrics were. But then again, you got a smooth rhythm going on, something that's kind of just not really low-key, but just medium consistency, and then you have the vocals that are able to really essentially make the punch of the essence of it. The transition to the chorus, that's damn well built without being jarring, and it was kind of a two-stage process following a very smooth transition back into the verses. Unfortunately, I can't really remember, just because there's little bits and pieces that really stuck to me, but others is just, while I was hearing it, I was just taking down notes. And it's also kind of airy, along with some old industrial elements. Like the thing that, when I say old industrial elements, I mean probably maybe Blade Runner, I dare say. Like the atmosphere is beautifully done, and it's kind of welcoming during the verses as well. The ending is punchy and consistent, and while still holding on to that kind of smooth journey through the track. I can't remember what I felt or what I thought lyrically, because I just apparently just wasn't that much of an impact on me, or I don't remember.
I don't remember the lyrics on that one either, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I'm not alone. Not that it was bad, but just
no, it was a good song. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Now, Meet Me in Purgatory. This one was kind of fun because it was interesting, with an almost rockabilly intro with simple drum and bass line that was used for the verse, with electric gradually brought in. Like, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. This follows into the chorus amazingly, with the keys that are quite 80s influenced. Hell, this might have been actually what reminded me of like Blade Runner, but then again, like he had in very old 80s techno industrial elements that were kind of thrown into this album sparingly. This was really easy and casual listening. The instrumental, it made the lyrics come across as the character slyly mocking their assumed witness, or at least that's what I was grabbing from the lyrics. Just because you're an enemy who has essentially created this mass shooting or assassination, and you've been taken down, or at least, of course, this is what I was gathering from it, and you're just staring at it, and you're just praying for me to go wherever, which honestly, within the realm of subjectivity, the shooter, whoever the assailant is, essentially gonna be in purgatory. So it's like, hey, if you're gonna do this, are you gonna meet me in purgatory along the way if you're caring this much about me, because this is where I'm going. So it's just like, I already know where I'm going, so I don't know why you're praying for me, almost.
Right.
Yeah. Now, here we go. Raise the Red Flag. This was a solid, upbeat, and eerie, distorted industrial intro, like it started off with.
It was very Manskin-esque intro. It really was. Like, it was one of those songs that when it began, you knew it was Manson.
Mm-hmm. So the bridge into the chorus is another solid throwback to old school Manson, as we just discovered, or just iterated. The lyrics within the chorus is quite vengeful but incredibly strong, and it's definitely coming from the perspective of a predator. Like, my red flag is your white one soaked in blood. So it's like, yeah, you've surrendered, but I don't fucking care.
Yep.
And then the verse comes back in and takes back the heaviness and the distorted bass line from the previous bridge, and it transitions this back into the chorus following. So the transition is awesome. And the breakdown goes into a sweeping, consistent rhythm before going into this punchy impact, almost kind of like a war cry. Or at least to me, that's how it came across. And it ends with a distorted piano that kind of contains like a static element in it.
Yeah, it did. Staticky is a good way to put it, I think.
So it was a damn good track.
Yeah.
The last track, Sacrifice of the Mass, this was a very melancholic acoustic. It introduced this, and then other instruments were lightly blended in for a more impactful beginning. And then once the verses began, the acoustic remained. It remains a constant, with the other instrumental aspects providing a sort of spice here and there, just kind of flavor it a little bit and keep the listener's attention. The keys provide potentially the best atmosphere to accompany the acoustic, honestly. And the breakdown becomes one of the most eeriest sections on the album here. Lyrically, this is the best representation to the ending of a mass and infamous killer. And it was an amazing ending with solely vocals and acoustic to close the album. So it was probably one of the best closers to an album I've heard in quite a long time. And this is even comparing it to the recent Opeth release.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that both of them finished their albums with a more, I don't want to say slower, but toned down,
or kind of like differentiating from the primary subject.
Right.
So, what the fuck does all that mean that I just said?
You gave it a 2. No, I'm just kidding. That would be hilarious.
Joke's on you, I give it a 1. No. No, but this album was exceptionally well done. And it's a piece, it's an album that, again, like Opeth, the lyrics and instrumentals are greatly complemented with each other. And I honestly have to give this album a 9. It just... And I guess there is some bias to that just because, especially when it comes to As Sick as the Secrets Within and some other tracks, like, it brought home some things that, like, I've put to the past. And so to be able to hear someone really put things into that kind of perspective for someone that's kind of dealt with anything similar.
Oddly therapeutic in a way.
Yes, it is extremely therapeutic. And, like, yeah, so, I mean, of course not. It wasn't the point that I was ready to just commit genocide on a university. Not that, but it's just the feeling of being... the feeling that you want to be shunned, that you want to distance yourself from people because you feel that if people knew what you truly thought about the world and majority of the people in it, that they would feel you're psychotic and you need help rather than listening to you. So that's the reason I gave it what I did, because it did fucking well at what it aimed to do. I hope a better understanding of mental health is obtained by this album, and I actually hope it goes a different direction than what it currently is, because currently it's a bunch of, to me, it is a great deal of hand-holding from people that I feel don't really fully understand what the person they're trying to help is going through. Or they feel helpful because they're kind, and if that's what the case is, then by all means, like, help someone, just because for those that need it, we need it. But the whole hand-holding and everything, I don't feel is needed. It's someone that can level with you as your own person, as someone that's similar to you, and will just listen out to what you have to say, or listen out to what anyone that's struggling has to say, and can grab a deeper understanding of what the root cause of everything is. I mean, we're going back to what Manson said during the issue with Columbine, and in an interview, he was asked, well, what would you say to the victim? Or what would you say to the assailant? And he simply said, I wouldn't say anything. I would listen to what he has to say, because that's what no one else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I think that I've loved the strides we've gone into with mental health, but there is a great deal of room for improvement, and a great deal of room for understanding more so of what people and these victims are actually suffering, that is potentially causing these mass genocides, these mass shootings, this consistent all these assassination attempts, which, of course, I know it's an ordeal of opinion and personal biases towards certain subject matters, but still.
Mental health is one of those things that the more we learn about it, the less we understand. It's weird.
It's unfortunately, that is true. That is extremely true, and this is why I kind of wish I wish the structure of mental health was a profession and a career that paid way more than it does, because you would be able to have a lot of people that have been there, that have in secret struggled with a lot of these issues. And let's face it, the main reason people are having to kind of go away and just deal with shit is because of the current economy we're in.
It's interesting, because I was actually talking to my wife about it, because she deals with mental illnesses too, and actually one of her biggest one, technically doesn't have a cure or a treatment right now.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't come up with one, or an effective one. And I was talking to her the other day. I said, I'm not the biggest fan of universal health care, just because it's so hard to do it right. But if there was one area where I feel like it should be free health care, it is in the mental health sector.
And I could not agree more, just because
it shouldn't cost anything to be able to talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist, or to go into any sort of treatment plans for mental health. I think to me, it's insane that, because it right now it's extremely expensive. Like, for the treatment they have, it's, even though it's not considered, to truly treat her thing, but it's the best thing to have right now for her condition, it would cost like $150 a week for her to go do this treatment. I'm like, we can't afford. I mean, that's what, $600 a month?
Yeah,
and that's with the dang insurance. Like, I can't, and it shouldn't be that way.
Goddamn privatized insurance.
Yeah.
Like, I understand privatizing in some aspects. Like, just because we're coming from, for those of you in other areas, this is unfortunate, but kind of, I guess, yeah, this is just the aspects of capitalism. Like, it's not inherently a bad thing. It's the people that are in control of it that make it a bad thing.
If it's done right, it works well. But there's so much corruption and bureaucracy in it right now that just...
Exactly. So, not to... I guess what we're trying to say, in order to try to make a long point short, is if you are struggling with mental health, and I mean absolutely struggling, I mean, of course, even if you have the slightest bit of concern for yourself, speak to a friend, reach out to someone that you know cares about you, or join groups that do not judge one another, so that you guys...
Groups out there for every type of mental illness there is out there, to where you can talk to other people who have the same thing you do, that can relate to you. Like, do whatever you can, do it, because none of us need to suffer.
Right. Anywho, yeah. So anything extra you want to say to this?
I think we've talked people ears off enough.
We have that kind of...
This album.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, solid album, great work, Manson. We honestly hope to hear more from you. And if that's all, then guys, we will see you next time in the next video. And always remember, keep rolling heavy.